Welcome in our Friday 5 on World Soil Day. Frozen as it might be out there. It's the Badger Delegate Michael Haidt back for a second run at it. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to be here.
David Valente in the Admiral Bill Stubblefield seat today.
Good morning. It's time to get dirty.
Yes, on World Soil Day. I like that. Yeah. Usually you're in the Joe Ferretti phone seat.
Clothing optional.
The clothing optional, skinny dipping in Lake Altoona seat.
But today you're in studio and clothed, I might add as well. Senior member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carr.
Good morning.
Hello, sir.
Good to be here.
Attorney at law Lawrence Schultz.
Good to be here.
Via telephone in the clothing optional Joe Ferretti seat, it's Joe Ferretti. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and I am fully clothed.
Well,
we'll take your word for it.
We
don't want photo evidence.
So was Jeffrey Tubin.
That's true. That's a fair point.
I knew I was setting myself up.
There's a lot of people right now searching that reference. And they're not going to want to know the answer, by the way.
Tubin.
Save yourself the time and whatever other reaction you might have. Let's get right into it, Joe. You are the leadoff hitter with issue number 1. The floor is yours, Senator.
Rob, a story that really has not, in my opinion, received enough attention is a court decision from Kanawha County Circuit Court. Judge Jennifer Bailey, here just a few days ago, issued an order after some very contentious litigation. Her order essentially invalidates the charter school system in West Virginia. And you can bet that this is going to be front and center with our legislature in the upcoming legislative session as to how to respond. And this case is going to continue to wind through the courts and will eventually end up with the West Virginia Supreme Court. But her decision essentially stands for this proposition, which is that the current West Virginia Professional Charter School Board and its authority to establish charter schools in West Virginia, the legislative scheme for that process is unconstitutional. In 1863, when the state was established, the legislature had the sole authority to establish schools in West Virginia. In 1872, just 9 years later, the Constitution was amended, and Article 12, Section 10 was added. That section states very clearly, no independent school district can be created without the consent of the voters. Now, starting in 1933 in West Virginia, we established the county school district system of public schools, where 5-member school boards governed our county schools, and the counties pretty much established the schools within those county lines. That system operated in West Virginia for almost 90 years. In 2019, our legislature began going down the path of charter schools. And you'll recall that the initial attempt did not work well because it actually followed the Constitution and said, hey, charter schools are going to be established by a county-by-county system, and the county school boards are going to be involved in that process. You'll recall that in Mon County, the first effort was made to establish a charter school, and the county school board there voted it down. So the legislature went back to work, and in 2021, under the leadership of Patricia Rucker, they came up with reforms to the charter school law and established the West Virginia Professional Charter School Board, granting it authority to establish charter schools throughout the 55 counties in West Virginia. And as we know, what happened after that was, I think we were up to, 7 or 8 either bricks and mortar or virtual charter schools in West Virginia, including the 2 we have, I believe, in Jefferson and Berkeley County. That was challenged in 2021. A lawsuit was filed. It wound its way through the courts. Jennifer Bailey, the judge in Kanawha County, actually had the case where she issued an injunction against the charter school board and the process of establishing these charter schools. That case was kicked out by the West Virginia Supreme Court. And from a layperson standard perspective, it was kicked out on really procedural matters. The issue of standing came up and whether the right parties were involved. So Judge Bailey granted the parties the right to amend their complaint, and that's what they did. And now this lawsuit, again before Judge Bailey, results in her ordering just a few days ago that the whole process is unconstitutional. Now, she recognizes that we're well down the road with students already attending these schools, so this is going to be rather upsetting. So she issued a stay of her own order, indicating that appeals can be filed and that a process is going to have to be put in place that if her ruling is upheld ultimately by the West Virginia Supreme Court, there's going to have to be some retroactive actions taking place here where counties who currently have these charter schools are going to have an option to go ahead and vote on whether to maintain those schools, to keep them open. And if the counties vote them down, then they're going to be closed. And her order also indicates that there shall be no further opening or development of charter schools in West Virginia while this appeal is pending on her order. So that's the current status of things in West Virginia. And it is a sea change in terms of the establishment and continued operation of these charter schools. Ultimately, when you look at her order and you look at where this is likely to go, the citizens of the state are going to have a say. This very battle was fought in the state of Georgia in 2011 and 2012. The Georgia Supreme Court ruled that their charter school board was unconstitutional, and the state went around and put a referendum on the next ballot, and the residents of Georgia approved the amendment to the Constitution, thereby authorizing the legislature to go ahead and continue with their charter school board and continue with their opening of charter schools. And that's the status of things in Georgia today. There are charter schools being opened by the charter school board. I predict that's where West Virginia ultimately is going to end up. But that means the voters are going to have a say. So my question this morning is whether we follow Judge Bailey's order to the letter and have a reauthorization of the current charter schools by a vote of the county residents where those charter schools exist, or we have an amendment on the ballot to the West Virginia Constitution, which will change the law and allow a charter school board to operate, the residents of West Virginia are going to be asked this question. Should the establishment of charter schools in West Virginia be subject to the residents' vote? And that's my question this morning.
And Joe, a clarification question on my end. Did the judge's stay of her own order halt the charter school board from creating new schools while this is going on?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that, Rob, because I read her opinion this morning. It's a 39-page opinion. I highly recommend people read it because it is a tour de force on education law in West Virginia and constitutional law. And her order grants a 60-day stay of her findings to allow for appeals. I believe, if I read the order correctly here, I believe it's her intent to stop any further opening of charter schools while the appeal period is running. Now, and I think as a practical matter, we can understand that will be easy to do and follow because no one's going to be opening a school in the middle of a school year. So I don't think there's going to be any violation of this order, and I think her order requires that no schools be opened while this is pending.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Mike, this bill was already approved before you were elected, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This obviously will become a big discussion point
Sure.
among your caucus now, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think about the judge's order, and what do you think about the constitutionality of the creation of the charter school board?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the the judge's order. I think she did it the right way, and I'm all for more local control. So I would like to see individual counties making this decision on their own. This charter school thing went down, and it went back to the legislature, and I have a lot of respect for Senator Rucker. She came up with a way to circumvent the problems with it, and now there are some that have questions about that and whether or not it's constitutional. I don't have a problem with them going to the courts and questioning that. So my real opinion is, are they working? We can debate whether they're constitutional or not, and we can fix that. But are they working? We are 50th in the nation constantly in education, and it seems we want to go and fight everything the legislature wants to do to try to get us from 50th up the ladder a little bit, and constantly they're met with some kind of obstruction to say, no, we want things to go on as normal. Well, normal's keeping us at 50. So, we need to do something different. So the better question is, are charter schools working? And I would have to say right now, I think they are. I think that some kids are getting better educations with charter schools. So do we need to have the counties decide whether or not, you have one in your county? All right, fine, let's do that. But when you go to vote in your county, whether or not you want a charter school, you better be asking yourself that question. Where are we right now as a state and a county in education? And are these charter schools providing better education than what our public system has given us so far?
And Joe, I got a couple generations removed from your questions. Could you restate your questions as well?
Yeah, I just, as a matter of public policy, because ultimately it's going to come down to this question, should voters have a say on whether charter schools open up in their counties? Mike's point, by the way, is right on. When you look at the experience in Georgia, and we look at the vote on amending their constitution, that referendum, the counties that had the poorest performing schools overwhelmingly wanted to approve the constitutional amendment to allow charter schools to operate in Georgia. So there was a clear connection between the performance of your schools and the desire to try to do something different.
And Mike, you said you think charter schools are working. Is there any particular goal date set ahead to determine from a actual mathematical examination of whether or not they are actually improving?
Yeah, I don't know if there is, and I think maybe it's too soon. They're just too new to determine whether or not what their effectiveness is so far. I mean, I'd like to see it at a 5 and a 10 year spot, some kind of metrics and whether or not they're meeting that or not. But that's how we should determine this. Are they working, and that should be the how we determine whether or not they stay or not.
Mike Carl?
Well, I agree with virtually all of what Mike just said, and I'm not, because my association with the law firm, and I'm not getting involved in the legal issues, but my personal policy thought about charter schools is I'm very much in support of the concept. I went to public school in West Virginia, and my children did as well. But I support the concept because I very much opposed what I blame the teachers union for why West Virginia public schools were as poor in performance as they have been for a long time, and the charter school is a way to avoid it.
What is your opinion in regards to the culpability of the unions directly as it affected education, Mike?
Well, the result was terrible. They had the control, and the schools did not do a good job. So the person in control is responsible for that failure.
Mr. Valente.
Yeah, I don't know that I would put it completely on teacher unions or as to the failure of the education system here in West Virginia. I think there is a lot to be said about the bloated bureaucracy of the school administrations in the state of West Virginia. The number of people who are outside the classroom dictating on what goes on inside the classroom. But when it comes to charter schools, I don't want to treat it as an ultimate panacea as to what is going on in education in West Virginia. I went to public schools. Charter schools really weren't a thing when I was going through school. So, but my nieces went through charter schools in New Mexico and had wonderful experiences there because they're able to focus on areas of interest, whether it was international affairs or media and arts. There are good things that can happen with charter schools. As to Joe's question, I think we should get either the constitutional amendment, a vote on a constitutional amendment to allow the charter school board to establish charter schools, or through a county vote to approve charter schools within that county. I'm good with either one of those, just because it's never a bad thing to let people vote on things, I think it's only a benefit to West Virginia education by giving people more choice.
Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, it is especially never a bad thing to make the state government follow its constitution. It absolutely is required that under what Joe was explaining to us about the state constitution, that you don't just sloppily throw this into place. You're going to have a vote. The voters do need to be involved. I'm not as much of an expert on charter schools versus public schools and how their performance may differ. I suspect that the main thing that's going to be required broadly in West Virginia to improve our educational system is a different approach when the child isn't in school, when the child is at home. There's an awful lot of, for example now, in the public schools, and I suspect the charter schools that exist as well, an awful lot of absenteeism. Well, there's not a heck of a lot the schools can do about absenteeism. I'm sure everybody recalls being told by their mother, "You're getting out of bed right now because that bus is going to be here." And if the parents and the families are not stressing education, then you can call that school whatever you want. If the kid's not there, I can't imagine how it's going to change a thing. So it will be interesting. There have been recent amendments suggested about various changes to our Constitution that did not fare so well with the voters. So I do believe that the judge is correct to the extent that the state constitution requires the voters to choose this, independent of who they choose to be in the legislature. Then, by golly, that's what you have to do. You have to follow it. I'll be extremely disappointed if our state Supreme Court walks away from that mandate. To me, from the state constitution, because to me, the even bigger problem than a failing education system is going to be that we selectively blow off our state constitution without bothering to amend it when we don't want to comply. I don't think that's a very happy outcome. So I would hope that our state Supreme Court says, look, this is not partisan. This is simply, here's what the Constitution says, and you got to follow it, or you have to amend it. And to me, that's the biggest issue here.
The Metro News article that's published this morning has a section of the Constitution published here. It says, no independent free school district or organization shall hereafter be created except with the consent of the school district or districts out of which the same is to be created, expressed by a majority of the voters voting on the question. So, Joe, when you read that, it seems pretty obvious that the judge seems to know what she's talking about here.
Yeah, and look, Rob, if you look, let me just state, on education matters, Patricia Rucker has always been very astute, and in 2021, it was clear after what happened in Mon County, where it was voted down by the school board there, and after a listening tour that the legislature embarked on in 2019 and 2020. Where they went across the state and received input from citizens, they knew that voters were not going to approve charter schools. So Patricia Rucker developed this legislative scheme, and there's nothing nefarious about it. It's been done in other states. The Charter School Board was the authority now, the authorizing agency to establish these schools. It was a workaround of citizen input. And that's what's been happening in West Virginia for the last few years. I'm sure she knows that this was going to be up for a constitutional challenge, because all she had to do was look at the state of Georgia just 10 years prior and see the exact same thing happening. Ultimately, it's going to come to what I believe will be a constitutional referendum on the ballot. And I'm not sure it's going to pass. There's going to be a lot of money spent on both sides of the issue, advocating for and against. But I'm just not sure it's going to pass. Really, there's only about 5 or 6 counties in West Virginia that have charter schools. A vast majority of residents have no experience with them in West Virginia. And if it's a statewide referendum, it's going to be a difficult task for the proponents of charter schools to get this across the finish line.
Sorry, Joe, I had to do some microphone repair for Mr. Height there.
That's okay. Well,
that was not a pregnant pause on purpose.
It was good timing, though.
we talk about, should this be a local control issue for charter schools, and I've already stated I think it should be, but maybe a bigger question is, should education as a whole be a local control issue? Should
Yes.
each individual county be able to make their own determinations about public schools as a whole, and should we be abolishing the State Department of Education and Board of Education and allow the counties to run their own education with block grants? And I think if we're going to tackle the charter school referendum, then maybe we need to tackle the whole big picture all at one time.
I think we also need a stem to stern review of K through graduate school of our education system here in West Virginia. What we have is not working, and how can we, we're already at the bottom. Let's start checking things out. Let's do a new system. Let's look at a new system and see if we can, we can be the lab of innovation, maybe, because we look at what, Mississippi used to be our neighbors in the bottom, and they're in the middle now. They've increased.
I think the legislature has done their best to model some of that Mississippi improvement action.
What prevents that from happening right now? I agree with you, but what prevents that from happening? The State Department of Education and the State Board of Education, who hands down and dictates to the local public schools how they're going to educate children. So do away with that, and that's half your problem solved.
Joe, 10 seconds to wrap it up.
Well, I'll be interested in Senator Rucker's perspective on this. I'm sure she's got a keen interest in what happened in Kanawha County.
Good lead-off topic as always, Joe. Much appreciated. Let's welcome back our co-hosts for the Friday Five. That includes the Badger, Delegate Michael Height.
Good morning.
Also,
Great to be here.
Also known as the Sarge.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And Michael Carl, longest tenured member of our crew.
Good morning.
And former tax commissioner of the state of West Virginia. Attorney at law, Lawrence Schultz.
Good morning, everyone.
Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
I agree. We also heard from Mr. Ferretti, Joey Torts. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
And with issue number 2, Mr. David Valente in the Bill Stubblefield seat, clothing mandatory.
Yes, clothing mandatory. I feel like following after Freddie. I got to say, I'm a non-attorney spokesperson. I am not an attorney, but I play one on Facebook.
And you are half Italian.
I am. Tuesday we saw the election of Mike Von Epps as the new representative from the Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. However, he won election by 9 percentage points. Not a horrible one, but the district was recently won by Donald Trump by 22%, and the previous Representative Green, won it by 21.5%. So we've seen a massive hemorrhage of Trump voters and Republican voters in this election to maybe not to the Democrats, or they just didn't show up. And we've seen this issue happen in 2018, where we didn't see a lot of Trump voters show up, and Democrats won big in the 2018 election. We're coming off a really rough month for the president and the Republican Party, coming off of the shutdown and the Epstein files, and now with the double tap gate as it's coming out. At the beginning of November, the Republicans took a pantsing all across the country. I think that out of all the counties that voted, either all or I think maybe just 3 did not see a significant gain in Democratic votes in those counties. So if you're a congressman facing re-election in 2024, even a senator, and you're for the congressman in 2026, I'm sorry, in 2024 you won by less than 15%. How do you act over the next 11 months? Because we've got a president that is essentially a lame duck president. He's not, even though he makes the noises that he wants to get reelected in 2028. He is a lame duck president. He's had several scandals, and there's lots of health issues that have come to the fore. His napping schedule suggests that he's really committed to ending wokeness. But how do you act as a GOP congressman? There's several paths you can take. We've seen some congressmen take different paths. Are you going to go maverick like the ambiguously Kentuckian duo like Massey and Paul? Are you going to be a maverick there? Do you go MAGA down and just totally commit to the president and totally commit to the path going forward, with the knowledge that you may face the blue wave coming in 2026? Or do you update the resume and mark yourself as open to work on LinkedIn? Or do you escape to Argentina? Or do you have another path forward as a GOP congressman or senator facing election in 2026? And your margin of election in the last election is less than 15%. What do you do?
All right, let's get to it. Michael Carl, you go first.
Well, I think you generally continue to support Trump's agenda, his policy agenda, not his style. But the real thing is that you continue to support the free enterprise system, and you contrast the Biden administration's operations, particularly their immigration failure. There's no doubt that they enabled the disaster that are now emerging because of what they failed to do with immigration enforcement. So that to me that's the advice to Republican candidates everywhere.
Policy, not style.
Yes.
All right. That's summation of Mike's thought there. Mr. Ferretti, by telephone.
Well, The Economist, which is a monthly publication, and it's certainly not a liberal publication by any stretch, recently was quoted as saying that President Trump's approval rating has suffered the most precipitous decline in recent history. He went from roughly a 45-45 split at the beginning of his term. He is now down around in the high 30s. I think 38% was the latest report. The generic ballot shows that the Democrats are starting to surge ahead, looking forward to the midterm elections coming up next year. So waters are getting very choppy for the Republicans. You're seeing some in Congress announce that they're not going to run for re-election. You see a couple noteworthy ones resigning. And they've got some issues. And I think that what I've heard said is that a lot of them are going to wait till the filing period deadline comes up to see who their opposition is going to be in the primary. And then they're going to decide how MAGA they want to be going forward. And I suspect that's going to be true for a lot of them. But all this, I got to include that the Democrats got to come up with a message. That I think they're starting to develop one on health care because of the Republicans' either refusal or failure to come up with any alternative to the ACA. There's no plan to help with health costs. And they're in charge. So where are they on that issue? And I think the Democrats are going to start developing a message on that front. But they need to be doing more. And I don't know that the current leadership is going to be able to do that, but that task remains for the Democrats. But for the Republicans right now, I think it's going to be difficult going forward, and it's all going to come down to economic issues, which are just in general not improving. And I think that's going to be a problem for them next year.
Mr. Badger.
Well, first of all, with respect to the ACA, I think that was created to help get more people on health care and make it more affordable, and that certainly hasn't worked, has it? So if that's the message the Democrats are going to go with, I think that could be a losing message depending on how the GOP twist their portion of it. With respect to Tennessee, I wasn't surprised by that at all. That's that particular district has always gone Republican. I think it would have been a whole lot bigger story if it had been a whole lot closer, or if the Democrat had upset the Republican. So I was not surprised by that. And I think a lot of times the margin of spread is determined not by Republicans or Democrats, but by the independents and how they view the individual candidates. As for what should the candidates do in the next year leading up to their election, they need to get home and they need to talk to their own constituents. They need to get the hell out of Washington, D.C. and national politics that's going on there and find out more so what the independents are looking for rather than the left or the right. If you're a Republican, you have the GOP, the MAGA, the Republican vote, and you're not going to get the Democrat vote. It's the independents you want to lure in and make sure you have a strong hold on them. So my advice to anybody that's running for re-election or is taking over for somebody that's leaving is find out what the issues are in your district for those independents and rally behind their causes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes, a couple of things. I would be interested in a deep dive on the vote in Tennessee and any of these off-year elections. As David alluded to, was this people switching between the 22% that Trump won by, or was this people on the MAGA side just staying home? And that's going to be important as you take data from all these off-year elections and look at it to see, did the whole vote go down, or did it go up, or did it stay the same? Did people switch to voting for the other side, or did they simply stay home and not vote at all? Hard to say. As far as West Virginia goes, we haven't hit the ACA pain dance that's coming. The Republican caucus does not seem to be moving very fast on doing something about this before New Year's Eve. And if they don't do something about this, regardless of how expensive the ACA was, you're going to see people who simply will not be able to have health insurance if they're going to keep their house. after December 31st if the Republicans don't come up with some kind of replacement plan. On that day, I believe that whichever it was in Tennessee, staying home or switching parties, even in West Virginia, that's going to be a terrible pain dance, and our two elected House members could be in some trouble. I know that for some people that seems impossible at this point, but I believe that the pain coming with the failure of the Republicans to come up with some kind of a plan, and to just let the so-called free market in health insurance take over, is simply going to mean you're going to say, do I pay for my health insurance or do I pay my rent or mortgage? I can't do both based on where we are. Obviously, as job losses mount and other things continue, that's going to become even worse in this state. But I believe that there's a really good chance that if the Republican Congress does not do something before the end of the year, that the ruinous healthcare premiums, which, outside of the ACA, they're shooting up. And so if something's not done, the pain in West Virginia, not just for the insured people under the ACA, but for the hospitals who collect that insurance money when those people come to the hospital and get treated, there's going to be a terrible reckoning.
So,
now, whether it'll come in 26 or not.
Are you admitting that the Affordable Care Act is unaffordable?
What I'm suggesting to you, certainly the healthcare industry hasn't shielded itself from raising rates, but something has to be done.
The
it's
Affordable
been in place
Care
for
Act
10
was
years.
supposed to be the something that was done. That was the solution.
When the
to
mandate got
Democrats.
struck down, that pretty much ruined the math equation. That was the theory behind it being affordable.
And the ACA was a sloppy wet kiss to the insurance industries. I mean, that's
And if that doesn't get fixed somehow, then we're going to see something that so I guess what I'm suggesting is, from my point of view, and in West Virginia, we're talking about this just a little bit too early. It's certainly a good issue no matter when you talk about it.
Yeah.
But come back in January and let's take a look at what happens to the insurance of the vast majority of ACA recipients are working Americans. And so we're not talking about some Medicaid giveaway like we always hear. We're talking about working Americans. And if too much money gets subtracted from that system, not only are people going to not have any insurance, there are not going to be hospitals around because they'll close their doors.
Final thought comes back to you.
Yeah, Mike was talking about, Mr. Carl was talking about, enjoying Trump's policies, but not his style. He's underwater in most of, I think, all of the issues now, even his signature immigration and economy. Do that at your peril. But also, Congress really can't take credit for any of this stuff because they haven't really passed any laws during his administration. This is all executive order that he's doing. So I think Mike is absolutely 100% right. If you're Mike Height is 100% right. If you're going to stay and fight, go for the independents. Fight for the independents. Show up in your district. Don't listen to Mike Johnson and say, I'm not holding any town halls. Hold town halls. Have those difficult conversations. But find out what your constituents need. Become a representative of the people.
Very good, sir. We go to Mike Height for issue number 3. And before we unleash the badger, happy birthday to his mom, Doreen, a loyal viewer and listener of the program. As I understand it, even when you went to Italy, she carved out Eastern Panhandle talk time.
We did. Every time we stopped somewhere, I guess you were on probably around noon, 2 o'clock, somewhere around that area. Yeah, we were always listening.
Yeah, I think my program is best viewed from Italy.
Yeah. Sicily especially.
Even better.
So moving on, my topic is this week Trump rolled back the CAFE standards, which CAFE is the corporate average fuel economy standards for the auto industry, and those were imposed by the Biden administration. Now, originally those CAFE standards were back in 1973, I believe, but they were enhanced by the Biden administration, and this particular rollback is supposed to save the average person buying a new car up to $1,000, and it allows for the auto manufacturers to build cheaper cars. Now, they aren't as fuel efficient as the Biden administration wanted. The Biden administration, with their CAFE standards, expected all vehicles to be 50 miles per gallon efficient by, I think, 2031, which the auto industry has said was an unrealistic goal and would force all Americans to be buying electric vehicles in order to buy a new car at that point. So my question to the panel is, does this make a difference to the average American? Is this really going to be a savings? Will this help the auto industry? And what real difference does this make in politics today?
Joe, I understand you have a relative who was in or may still be in the auto industry. Any direct input on this one?
Yeah, my brother affiliated with Ford for 30 years. I'll give the president, Mike, an A for effort in terms of trying to address affordability. Everybody knows how expensive cars are these days. I think the average price now is well up over $40,000 per car. I give him an F in terms of a policy prescription, because reducing the standards for miles per gallon, which were set at 50 and now are going to be 35 miles per gallon, which are required by the year 2031. We have to understand that automobile manufacturing does not turn on a dime. When standards are put in place and goals are instituted in terms of miles per gallon and how we build our cars, factories are constructed in a way to meet those goals. You just don't turn around and change a factory overnight to give people relief on the price of cars. This is going to be a years-long process. So as a policy prescription to try to reduce costs today and tomorrow, it's not going to work. The manufacturers are going to have to retool and plan and change plans in terms of how they build their cars. The other thing that the president did, and I think this was in his big, beautiful bill, if you'll pardon the description, he stripped out the ability of these car manufacturers to include EVs in the overall equation of how many miles per gallon their cars that they make get. For example, if you go look at a sticker on an EV, the equivalent miles per gallon is usually 88 to 100 miles per gallon in terms of energy consumption for an EV. Now, you factor that in with a car that gets 25 miles a gallon, suddenly you're starting to meet the standards set by the government in terms of miles per gallon. But if you strip out the EVs in that equation, then yeah, it's very difficult to manufacture just gas-guzzling cars that get 50 miles per gallon. But that's what he's done. It's really thrown the EV manufacturing process under the bus, so to speak. And you got to wonder how Elon Musk thinks about that. But bottom line here is that long term, it may give consumers relief, but in the short term, it's not going to lower prices because manufacturing doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and the 35 or the 50, that's a fleet average, not an individual requirement for each model, correct?
That's a fleet average.
Fleet average, all right.
And if you strip out EVs, then yeah, it's very difficult to meet that average.
Mr. Carl.
Well, first of all, the whole idea of government imposed standards to products, and that's what Congress did, and that's how and that's what Trump pushed back on is wrong in a free enterprise system. Let the free enterprise system and the competition among vehicle manufacturers and dealers be the force that leads to better cars. And this whole idea of imposing, from the government, particular standards like this is just wrong. And to the extent Trump has pushed back on it, I think he's engaging the free enterprise system, and I think politically, ultimately, the public will appreciate, because the free enterprise system is what made America great.
1 minute apiece on your opportunities to go, Mr. Valente and Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, I think it's a waste, just as Joe had alluded to, the amount of money that's been pumped into this system already, now to back that out. When it comes to free enterprise, that's great, but they invited them. The car companies invited the government into the bedroom when they got bailed out in 2008. So, both the CAFE standards and this rollback are just a waste on the auto industry, and keep the government out of corporations.
That bailout, by the way, helped to drive up prices because it took used cars off the street. It made a shortage of used cars. Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, on December 5th, 2026, 1 year from today, show me $1,000 cheaper brand new car. That ain't going to happen. It's another bald-faced lie from the orange guy. And so that's how he always tells us about everything that he does. And nobody, if you're counting on that money to retire, forget it. You're going to be working until you drop.
That's pretty bleak. That's pretty bleak.
Well,
right,
come on.
For a car?
And so, that kind of paltry lie laid over this is an attempt to obfuscate what Joe was talking about, which is they're now going to require that every completely gas-operated car manufactured by Ford gets an average of 35 miles per gallon. That's an even tougher standard than the one that was in place before if you can't count the EVs. And so it's not going to save a penny. It's going to drive the prices even more high. And yes, the desire for used cars is going to go through the roof. People are going to say, I'm just not doing this. $40,000. Holy cow. If that's going to go down by $1,000, it doesn't make any difference, and it's not. So,
and your minute is up, Mr. Height. It comes back to you to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm not buying the argument that manufacturers are upset by this and are going to have to retool. They wanted this. They were the ones that were saying this is an unobtainable goal. We can't meet these standards. The only way we can meet these standards on fleet-wide vehicles is to have more than half of them be EV. And guess what? The public doesn't want EV. The dealerships right now are giving their EVs away, essentially. They're paying people to take them off the lots. Nobody wants them. So this was not realistic. All Trump has done is roll them back to the Obama standards and make them more realistic.
Thank you, Mr. Height. Average price of a new vehicle in the United States in 2025, $50,080. We are back with issue number 4. Mr. Schultz, you are on the clock next. We are here with the Friday Five in studio. David Valente is in the Bill Stubblefield seat.
Good morning.
Michael Carl is in his seat that he's held longer than anybody else on this program.
Good morning.
Good to have you here, sir.
Good to be here.
Mr. Ferretti joins us by telephone from Georgia, I suspect. Joe, I didn't ask you earlier.
Yes, I am back home after deer hunting in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. Glad to be home.
Did you get one?
I did not. Much to my wife's joy, since we still have meat in the freezer from the last 2 deer I got. No, I was unsuccessful, but I don't want to say unsuccessful because any time in the woods is a success.
Now, we had this conversation last year when I think you didn't get one either, and I asked you on your drive to where you went to hunt, how many dead deer along the highway did you pass?
Oh, goodness. I'll tell you, in West Virginia, I was spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania, too, because we have a hunting camp there. But West Virginia, my goodness, the amount of deer alongside the road, it's really sad.
I think West Virginia and Pennsylvania are the 2 worst states for deer strikes. Maryland can't be far behind because on my drive in and drive home, I probably see a half a dozen in various states of explosion along the road.
Yeah.
Delegate Michael Height is here as well, sir.
Good morning. Great to be here.
And with issue number 4, Attorney at Law Lawrence Schultz.
Yes, Is Pete Hegseth a war criminal? There's reporting from the Washington Post that says he told the admiral to kill everybody. And the second strike killed people who were clinging to the wreckage. Congressman Jim Himes was just in the last 24 hours gave an interview in which he said, I have seen the video of the guys clinging to the wreckage, and there's no question that they were helpless, and they had no means of locomotion, and they're in the water. So this is going to be, that part of it is going to be interesting. The second strike killed the people who were clinging to the wreckage. Hegseth seems to be blaming the admiral. Will Hegseth or the admiral or others face war crimes or murder charges in the future, either in The Hague or in the American court system? That's my question.
Can I just clarify for those of you joining the program, you're not referring to Bill Stubblefield when you say the admiral?
No. In fact, I kind of wish Bill was here. I would love to hear his view on this. So maybe he can join us on Facebook and tell us what he thinks about it.
Mr. Ferretti, you're up first.
I don't think there's ever going to be any formal charges of violations of the Geneva Convention or murder charges. But that doesn't lessen my concern about the tactics and the overall plan that apparently is in place to just blow these ski boats out of the water under the guise of some sort of narco-terrorism war that we're engaged in the Atlantic and in the Caribbean. If the goal is to lessen the amount of drugs coming into this country, we should begin with our southern border, and we should start arresting the vast majority of American citizens who are trafficking in fentanyl across the border, because that is what is happening. As for these Venezuelans who, jump in these ski boats and try to get cocaine to places in the Caribbean and ship it over to Europe, I don't understand why the military is involved in this. We have a U.S. Coast Guard that interdicts all the time in terms of stopping the transport of drugs through sea vessels. But this president and this administration wants to employ the military and have all this video of drones blasting these folks out of the water, and apparently proceeding to kill survivors whose only threat to this country may be flipping off one of our satellites, because all they have is debris that they're floating on in the Caribbean. I don't understand that. It's not a good look for this country. I thought we were better than that, but this is where we are. I think the whole plan that this administration is following needs to be reviewed by Congress. If there was ever any oversight from Congress, I think this would be issue number one. You just can't sprinkle these people with fairy dust and say they're military combatants and we get to kill them. I think there's more behind that that needs to be discovered, and I hope Congress gets to it.
Mr. Carl.
Well, there's no doubt that these people are enemies of American interest, and this whole process of the attacks is just and these last steps that we're focused on are just part of the same legitimate military action to protect America, and so the Trump haters will try to do make all they can of it, but he's protecting America, which Biden did not.
Mr. Schultz. Oh, sorry, that was your topic. My apologies.
Yeah.
Mr. Valente, I meant.
Yeah, look, if you want a war, declare war, go through Congress and do it the right way. Don't just we call this guy a bad guy because we think that they're a bad guy. There's no evidence other than debris in the water as to what these people are. Was what happened in that particular instance a war crime? I absolutely think it was. In fact, UCMJ and our the example that they give when it comes to war crimes and illegal order is attacking somebody who's been shipwrecked, who's no longer a combatant. These people really aren't combatants. They're just driving a boat to who knows where. We don't even know where they're going. We just know that they're leaving Venezuela and going north into the Caribbean. And we're, it's shoot first and don't even ask questions. People will say, well, Obama talked about double taps and his administration. I absolutely think what happened during the Obama administration was a war crime as well. At the very least, we should be getting a JAG review of this, a UCMJ review of what happened in this thing. Congress should be doing its due diligence as well. We're seeing some move towards that, but I think just allowing the Trump to declare somebody enemy combatant and allowing us to kill them, even though they're no longer or not even a combatant in the first place, I think is folly. And it leaves our military up to danger in ourselves. If we're willing to kill people on a double tap, that means our enemies will be willing to kill our people on a double tap if they're injured and unable to fight in a military campaign.
Now it comes back to you, Larry Schultz.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I skipped Mike Height.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to hear Mike Height.
We thought that was on purpose.
Obviously, Mike. Yeah.
Well, let me make it good then. Let me start by saying the Washington Post is a liberal rag. So I was not surprised at all by this crap that they put out. And this was also debunked the very next day by another liberal rag called the New York Times, who said that did not happen, that order was not given to kill their survivors. So if you got one liberal rag debunking another liberal rag, I would say it's a wash. So having said that, is Pete Hegseth a war criminal? No, he's not. And did we do a double tap, as you would say, and try to kill survivors? I would say no, that we didn't destroy the boat the first time, and we did a double tap on the boat that was carrying the drugs, not particular. You know what? If the survivors swim away from the drugs in the boat, they may have survived a little bit longer. So we were destroying the boat and the drugs, not the survivors. And here's the other thing. Can anybody name one time there has been a war crimes tribunal of somebody that was the loser, tried by the loser? No, it's always been tried by the victors. So who has the authority to try this anyway? Who would bring Pete Hegseth up on war crimes other than us? We would be the only ones with the authority to do any. NATO's not going to, because I can tell you right now, we're not going to recognize NATO's authority to try any of us. It just wouldn't happen. It would be the same thing that happened when, like you said, it was Obama hitting drone strikes against whether they were war crimes or not. Huh?
What about Abu Ghraib, My Lai massacre, things like that? We've gone after our own people to hold them to account.
Right. That's my point. It would have to be us.
Yes.
Us. We would be the only authority.
UCMJ.
All right. It's not going to be anybody else. So, and right now, we're the ones, the Republicans are the ones in charge. It's not going to happen. Just like during the Obama administration, there's not going to be any war crimes. There's going to be no tribunal. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing rarely happens with these types of things. You had lawyers sitting there allegedly telling them that this was okay, that these strikes are okay and legal. Well, that means that then it needs to go to the courts.
Pete Hegseth left in the middle of this. Where did he go? Did he get? Was it dollar margarita night at Applebee's, or what? Where did he go during the middle of this thing?
They just state that Applebee's does not advertise on this program.
They did the strike. After the strike, he got up and left.
The middle of it. In the middle of it.
Okay, he thought it was over. They struck the boat. It's over. Do I stick around and watch the rest of it? Do I watch it burn? According to him, he thought it was over. He left. So
the boat was incapacitated to the point where it was okay for him to leave.
He thought so.
Well, then, if it's incapacitated to move the drugs, supposed drugs, there is no. That means they are no longer in the fight.
Unless after time you realize the boat isn't incapacitated and they're trying to get back in and save the drugs.
Apparently, it was like in two pieces, and the hull was flipped over. So I mean, it's
and they were gathering up the drugs and trying to put it back into the boat. There were other boats coming, so all they did was hit the boat again, swim away.
Well, we'll see hopefully we'll see the.
Now it comes back to you, Larry Schultz.
Where is the proof that there were any drugs in any of these boats? There is zero proof.
That's not true.
Okay.
Just because you don't have the proof doesn't mean there is proof.
The evidence.
You know what? There are Democrats that were there and said there were drugs.
Okay. Show me the evidence that there were drugs.
There's the evidence. There is evidence. Even Democrats have
Show me the evidence.
Why does anybody have to show you the evidence?
Because I'm helping pay for this madness. I'm a taxpayer. And I deserve to know.
No, you don't.
Everybody in this country, especially those.
No, your representatives
especially
deserve
those
to know.
who have military members in their families who might get the same treatment from Venezuela one of these days. Be careful what you tolerate being done to these people when there is no declaration of war and no proof of drugs. And then it gets turned around. And then they'll be saying, well, this luxury liner was carrying cocaine. This Caribbean boat, this party boat that we send out and people take cruises on, that was carrying cocaine. We had to bomb it. And 1,000 people died. Be careful. I'm saying what you work for. And by the way, this is all about saving America from drugs. At the very same time this is happening, Trump pardons the ex-president of Honduras who was involved in a scheme and took bribes to look the other way while 400 tons of cocaine was being shipped into the United States by these thugs. So this is simply more performance art. Yeah. By the Trump administration. Hey, let's make a video of us blowing up this boat that we can't even prove had cocaine on it, and we'll, at the same time, pardon the actual guy who was convicted in an American court and put in prison for helping to ship 400 tons of cocaine to the United States. This is a level of selective choosing here that's just insane.
On to issue number 5, Michael Carl.
Okay. If the Republican candidate for president of the United States in 2028 strongly supports the substance of Trump's policy agenda, but is far, far less obnoxious personally, what chance do the Democrats have to win?
Right. Mr. Haidt.
A good chance, because it's not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to whether or not our economy is rolling again and how people perceive whether or not our economy is rolling again. And it's going to also depend on the candidate on the Democrat side and whether or not they can present themselves as more moderate and away from the Biden administration.
Mr. Valente.
Not a good chance. Like Mike Haidt said, that it depends on how the economy is going. But right now, Trump is underwater in all of these signature policy angles that he pushes, especially immigration and the economy. He can continue to blame Biden, but that is going to be less and less resonant as we get into 26 and 27 and 28. And it's less resonant now. I think Trump has done enough economic maneuvering to really place his stamp on what's going on in the economy when it comes to tariffs and things like that. So I don't think that there's a great chance for a Republican candidate, even if it's Donald Trump running again in 2028, that they'll win the White House.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes. Of course, it will depend on what happens in the midterms and how that is responded to. After those midterms, if there's a Democratic blowout or some kind of massive shift in the power, then there's going to be a couple of years of truly interesting American politics because to the extent that Donald Trump is still alive at that point, there are going to be a hearing or two about some of the stuff that he's already done. I do know a couple of things. Prices did not come down day one. The Ukraine war did not end on day one. They're just about ready to punt that whole thing off the side of the boat. Trump is about done because who knew the Ukraine-Russia war isn't something you can solve in 24 hours. So I think Trump will be moving further and further away from that. So all of those promises were things that people voted for him on. And this incredible drop in prices on day one that we're going to see. The prices are still going up. Now, gasoline has come down a little bit, and we're always glad to see that. But if the economy does not improve markedly, then this is going to be painful in the midterms for the Republicans and in 28.
Mr. Ferretti.
Yeah, in addition to the economic issues, which I think we can all agree will be front and center in both 2026 and 2028, when Mike Carl wants to draw a distinction between Trump's personal behavior and his policies, I'd submit that some of the policies are going to be called into question. When you have supporters of his, conservatives, commenting on the Trump administration in the way like George Will just did, calling it a moral slum of an administration, just in an article published this week. When you have Joe Rogan on his very popular podcast questioning the tactics that are being used to enforce immigration laws, not the fact that we need to enforce the border, not the fact that we have a lot of illegals in the country, some of them committing crimes and some of them that need to go, but the tactics of profiling people, the tactics of detaining U.S. citizens because of the language they speak or the color of their skin. Those policies are going to be a millstone around the neck of any candidate who would espouse a similar type of policy in 2028 on the GOP side. You will win a primary. But in the general election, people like George Will and Joe Rogan are signaling that independents and those who even supported President Trump in this last election are not going to be with the next candidate in the next election if those kinds of policies are going to remain. This is a give an inch, take a mile club that has developed in the White House, and they have overextended themselves on some of these policies, and I think there's going to be a backlash. So for a successful GOP candidate, there's going to have to be some sort of moderation in terms of some of these policies, I think, to be successful.
Comes back to you, Mike Carl.
I can't say I disagree, entirely with this, but once again, the key will be where the nation stands in terms of national security, immigration control, and the economy. I absolutely agree, and that'll determine the outcome of the next presidential election. And I still think the Republicans will carry the ball.
Do you have a person in mind when you think of a policy person who's less obnoxious? I think of Marco Rubio.
I think of Vance, the vice president.
Oof.
That was what my face was making.
Thanks for going first, Joe.
When I think of Vance now, I just think of Hervé Villachez. Yeah, that is permanently emblazoned in my head now from South Park. All right, we've got final thoughts coming up in just a moment here. Everybody gets 8 seconds apiece when we return after the break. Time for final thoughts, 8 seconds apiece. Joe, you may have already had your final thought 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, but I'll add this. PEIA just announced new premium increases. Mike Height, get ready for more health insurance discussion.
Larry Schultz.
We still have brisket raffle tickets. Drawing is December 29th. They're only $10 a piece, and it's a family meal for 10.
David Bolente.
Good luck to Rob's team in the state championship this weekend, and good luck to the Kennesaw State Owls in the Conference USA championship.
Mike Carl.
Even though the Commanders are out of it, I still enjoyed the Cowboys' loss yesterday.
Mike Height, 3 seconds.
Shut up. Happy birthday, Mom.
Good one. Dave Ramsey Show is next. This is Talk Radio, WNR Martinsburg and TV 10. Have a great weekend.